want to go to that one as well. So,
okay.
just to let you know.
Oh dear.
Well, none of those people I just said should be
We
at
might not have anyone from
the
Fishing
FCA
on it.
meeting.
Yeah.
Oh God. Did you manage to get a holiday this year, Tracy?
Yeah, we went to the Isle of Wight for a week.
Oh, was it you going over there?
It was
Dominic
lovely.
said
It was lovely, but it rained virtually the whole time. We had all the weathers.
we had 2 weeks over there and it rained. Some years you can have it and it's absolutely beautiful. You couldn't get it any better. It's just like being abroad. But sometimes the weather was bad at that time of the year anyway, so. But don't let it put you off.
No, I really liked it, but even the locals said they'd never known weather quite like it.
Yeah, it's not bad. You know, Dominic's been over there and he knows it can rain all the time or it can be sunny all the time.
That's just in one day.
That's in one day. You've got to get used to looking at the clouds and working out which part of the island you need to go to. Once you've worked that out, you can avoid the rain.
Yeah.
Right, I can confirm that we are now streaming and we've got live audio and visual as well. So that's a good and that's a relief. It's just a shame that at this moment in time we haven't got more councillors, and at the same time we haven't got any members of the public or questions in the chat box. But hopefully that will change. Terry will be with us shortly. If he's not here immediately, I think we might as well start in a few moments, because I know the police will have other things that they need to attend to. But I know in the first instance, maybe TVP would like to open up in terms of kind of local policing priorities at the moment, or maybe issues that you're looking at. Speak of the person and he will appear. Evening, Terry. Terry, your camera and your audio currently appear to be both turned off. We have picture. Do we have sound?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry about that. My parish laptop just will not let me get into Teams. I don't know why. So I've had to swap onto the desktop.
Okay, good. Terry, we would just, it's got to 6:30.
Yeah.
We decided that we were going to make a start. I know that you most probably want to say something at the initial point, but we don't currently have any questions from the members of the public in the chat box.
Okay.
So I was just saying to Jim that we might need to sort of like start up. We are.
Okay. Oh, John Howard's trying to get in now, so yeah. There we go. Yeah. I've got an inbox full of stuff that I've been holding on to. So and I will pick at those as we go along if we have time. So yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. So if we have any questions from other councillors or issues that they'd like to highlight, that's most probably it.
Can I ask the police
Yeah.
officer, Adam?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the young lady's name?
James.
What's the young lady's name?
We can't hear you. You're muted. That's it. Yeah.
Sean Terrett.
Oh,
We've seen
I'm
Sean
Catherine
before,
Kent.
Catherine. Catherine.
I'm
Sean's
Catherine
been on
Kent.
quite a lot, quite a few times.
from Old Brook.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask a question that a lot of the residents who live around the cricketers and the green, we want to know what procedures, or what is it you can do to try and support residents with the amount of fireworks that are being let off on that green? And it starts in November and goes through until nearly the end of January. And sometimes it is so bad you just can't sit down and watch telly. I get nothing but phone calls all the time. So I was wondering, is there anything that the police can come up with so I can reassure the residents that I have spoken to you?
Have any of them reported it, firstly?
I don't know if they reported it to the police, but they reported to me very, very quick.
Well, if we don't get reports to us, then we're not going to come out. So
We're not going to come out.
Well, we don't know about it, do we? We've had no reports to us. So if there are officers in the area and we get a report of fireworks being let off past the time that they're allowed to be, then of course we'll come out and try and deal with it. But if we don't have the reports, then we're never going to get out there.
Right. Okay.
This is the old story of we must, as councillors, push out. Get it through on 101, even online on 101 if you don't want to sit on the phone. That is exactly the same system. If we do not report, or we do not get members of the public to report, then there's absolutely nothing that the police officers can do. They don't, as Sean just said, they don't know anything about it. And the more reports, the more the priority goes up.
Yeah, it's when I've told the residents they should phone up the police, and when I get the most negative attitude is, well, they're not going to do anything. Now, I know you hear this all the time, but they feel I'm the first one and I should be the one phoning the police for them all the time. But I've been doing this job for nearly 50 years now. I started off down in London, and my attitude is, if the residents cannot do it themselves, you should not do it for them, because you're not going to be there for them all the time. And I am constantly telling them this, that they should do the same thing as what I would have to do, is phone the police and tell them that you're worried. The other thing that they're also worried about, and I know Terry knows about it and I know Dominic does, but residents who walk their dogs around this green at night, I think it's usually about 6 o'clock when they stop doing it, but they're doing it between 4 and 6, and they're finding that there is groups of youngsters in the bottom part of the green in the corner on the right hand side to the yard. Now, I've told them not to walk round that way, to just go the other way and not go past that corner. Now, I don't know if there's young people in there all the time. I don't know if they're dossers or anything, but they have told me that this is happening. They are very worried about it. Now, because a couple of years back, there has been attacks on women that have been walking their dogs, and we don't want that to start up again.
Again, Catherine,
I've told them to tell the police.
If the police haven't got the intelligence, there's nothing they can do. If we don't, we must get through to our residents that they must use the 101 system. So much so, Dominic, Tracy's here. Tracy, can you make sure it goes onto the comms agenda to get an article in the Home Ground regarding reporting of matters on 101? Because if we don't get it across, then it's very, very difficult for anybody to get it across.
It's very hard. They just don't want to. They seem to come running to the councillors or running to someone who's in priorities and can get it done for them. We can't.
I basically tell people now, by responding to emails or voice, I tell them, once you've reported it on 101, come back to me, and then I will report it myself. I will do a report as well, with you giving me the information in writing or text or whatever, and then I will put it through. But I won't put things through all the time for residents anymore until they actually start working and do stuff for themselves.
So, yeah.
Jimmy, I think you've had the same over on Wolfton, haven't you? Where people are not putting in reports and expecting stuff to be done.
Just a little bit further on what Terry's saying, to just give you an idea of our resources, is generally at any one time you're going to have a maximum of maybe 4 officers, and that's quite rare. You have 4.
Yeah.
Most of the time, there's 1 or 2, and we are responsible for the whole of Campbell Park. So we have to go by where the most risk is, and the only reason we can identify the risk is by people telling us what's going on and where it is, and then that way we can then prioritise where we need to be at what specific time. So it's very, very important, like everyone said, to get everybody to ring us. And like I say, you can report online, that comes through to us as well. So
Okay. What I will do myself, Terry, is I'll write an article myself to go in Home Ground.
Okay. Yeah.
And see if that helps. But I've seen this happening so much for years and years. It's not a new thing. It's been going on for years.
My wife has just pointed out to me, and Sean knows Julie quite well, that they actually she actually emails to the South Cluster as well to make sure they get that intelligence as well, which is something that I think that we have fell down on. I've been doing it for a while, but if we actually get that advertised out to councillors, Dominic, please, with the email address to make sure that we can get that across to councillors. That they can email the South Cluster as well. We've got the email address, guys, so what I'll do is I'll get Dominic to put it out to all councillors.
How quickly does an email actually get through to Control Central or wherever? If we email, how quickly a response can one expect to an email?
The email comes directly to us as on the south, so it'll be when one of the officers picks it up, so it should be looked at multiple times a day. The emails to us don't go to the control room, that would be reporting it online, or the phone calls. The emails are just to the PCs and PCSOs that work on the area.
This is non-emergency stuff, John. This is not for burglaries in progress or that sort of thing, which I always say, and no police officer will say anything against this. If you feel it's important enough, you use 999.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's for anything else, this is for the normal procedure stuff. You're getting emails from a problem that's occurring on Woolstone several times a week. You could put that through, and the guys will look at it. It doesn't happen for Willen from us because the South Cluster don't deal with Willen. But if they get something through for Willen, I know for a fact they'll put it through to the guys at Broughton. Okay, Carl, good evening. Have you got any questions you want to ask the officers?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. On Springfield, I've seen a lot of these electric scooters being ridden not in the way they're supposed to be ridden. So either multiple people on a scooter or not the hired scooters riding around. And also, I've noticed just before I start, I've literally just started a new job. So prior to starting a new job, I noticed the traffic outside the school at dropping off and picking up time was parking on the double yellow lines. It's as if those restrictions didn't exist because they're not getting policed in any sort of way. I went up there as a councillor last summer and pointed out to them that there's restrictions there at that time and got them to move. But they just don't seem to care. They just drive up there, stop on double yellow lines or outside the school to drop their kids off because they don't want them to walk 2 yards. Is there something we could do about that? Is there any way that we could get that some PCSO or something just to go down there to do it a few times, not consecutive days, but maybe a couple of times a week for a few weeks, just so they get their message then they're not allowed to park there. And
I can tell you with that one, Carl, that PCSO Tracy Jones goes and does a lot of school parking at Springfield. And we've discussed this before, Terry, that when we're there, people will comply. The minute we're not, they won't. But technically, double yellows are a council issue, and you need to get the parking wardens down there. So we try, as Jim said a minute ago, there's not many of us on. So trying to get us to as many schools as possible, because as you can appreciate, it's not just Springfield, it's every school. Yeah. So we honestly try and do morning and evening just off the cuff, not the same days. And when we're there, people generally behave, people will move when we ask them, but the minute we're not, they'll go straight back to it. We can obviously issue tickets for certain things, but double yellow lines, if you can apply to get the traffic wardens down there and issue a few tickets, that might make people think a bit more.
Okay, so how do we go about that?
Carl, the one thing the police can deal with is when they park on the zigzags. That is an enforceable offence, and police can deal with that. Teddy Bogie is the parking manager. Dominic, maybe when I start my new job, maybe you and I could manage to get Ted over for a conversation with regard to the lack of enforcement that we're finding within our parish.
Yep. Okay.
It's not a problem just at Springfield. We've got the same problem down at Jubilee Wood. We've got the same problem up at the other one at the other end of the school, Willows. You know, and it is a wide problem. Sean knows how much I fought to get even further restrictions outside Orchard School, and we were lucky to get what we got. That took a huge amount of involvement. Unfortunately, we had a couple of PCSOs with us that came out and gave information to that little group to manage for highways to deal with it. But yeah, Sean and Jim are right. They can't book people for double yellow lines anymore. It's not a police power anymore. They can do it for obstruction.
Yeah, we are currently involved in a number of discussions with highways and the council about parking as a whole, but we're involved in it as everybody comes to us to report parking problems, and so we're an agency that's involved, but we're trying to get a solution across the board, so not just for the schools, also like parking on the roundabouts and things like this. It's an ongoing thing, and I suspect it's going to go on for a little while, to be honest with you, but we are involved in those discussions with different agencies at the moment.
I mean, what makes it worse, the parking outside the school was expanded. You know, they've got no excuse for it. It's just that the parents are so damn lazy. I mean, half of them drive from the estate.
The bottom line of all these things is unfortunately not giving them warnings, although clearly one gives them warnings if that's what one does. But the bottom line is actually fining, because when people are fined, that word gets around pretty quickly. And if the other lads, not yourselves, because I understand it's not your role, but if the traffic wardens or whatever were regularly going around on school patrols at that particular time and fining, very quickly parents would change their behaviour patterns. I would suggest.
The one thing that you could help us out with parking, guys, there's two hot spots. I witnessed a child almost get knocked over in its pushchair with a mother on Cornell Crescent on Fishermead last week. With the parking on the pavement, you can't get past by the flats nearest to the co-op, and on Shackleton Place in Oldbrook, where cars are fully parking on the pavement at the top, which again is a full obstruction of the pavement. Now I know that you've got powers to deal with that. Craig has been very, very good when we've managed to get Craig down there. I haven't seen Craig for a while, but hopefully he's still about. Super PCSO as we found him on Fishermead. But if he's about, he will always come down there and meet me down there sometimes. But again, they are two very hot spots, which again, Shackleton, Catherine has highlighted that for many, many, many months again. And those are the two that if you can look at, please, I would be very grateful.
Yeah, I mean, I've made a note of them. Just as a quick one, with those areas, I appreciate parking on the pavement. It is a problem. Do you know, is the signage up to say about no waiting? Because that's quite important in terms of pushing through the prosecution.
In those areas, there are no signage because it's got public parking on the opposite side.
Yeah.
Cornell, there's obviously no signage, but I've got no problem with parking one wheel on the pavement when there's a problem. But when you get a whole car on and there's not enough space for a woman to get through, people to get through with a wheelchair, as we found several times on that area, and also women with pushchairs, single pushchairs, can't get through, then to me that becomes a hot spot and a real highlight. I don't want to be told about a child being injured or killed in a pushchair when something could be done, and I know you guys are the same.
Yeah, totally agree. We've got a letter that we used on Netherfield, and it's kind of an advisory letter. So we're going to look to try and start that process up as well, just to say, you know, you are blocking the pavement. it's been recorded that you're blocking the pavement. It's kind of an advised stroke, small threat, if you like, that we're going to take further action. It's trying to get the education across.
Yeah.
Because with parking, it's mostly about education.
I agree.
And so there are things we're looking at doing to combat it, really.
Okay.
But I've made note of those 2 places you mentioned. So
can I
Thank
say
you.
something about this, please?
Yeah.
You said you saw a child almost getting knocked down with a woman with a pram. A few weeks back, there was a child and her leg got caught by a car. There was no injury to the child, nothing to the car, but it was that close. And it was because there was 2 cars, one on one side, fully parked on the road path, and one on the other side. So people were having to walk in the road to go past them.
Yeah.
And this has been getting worse. My problem now is it's getting dark. And that corner can be really busy when the schools are coming out, when the college, university and the college comes out. That road is very, very busy. And they get attracted to that corner because of the shop. And if that parking isn't sorted, we're going to end up with someone seriously getting hurt. And I've tried to talk to people. I've only once got through to one person, but nothing but verbal abuse from their children for doing it, because they were convinced that these half-moon pavements on the roundabouts as you come off of the boulevard are parking bays. They are convinced that they are car. And when I said they are not, they are pathways. And that is part of a roundabout you've just parked on. And then when I done it, I got verbal abuse. Now, Terry and Dominic keep telling me not to approach them. But I am the councillor for that area, and that road is getting bad. And the residents keep coming to me about it. My husband's getting angry with me because I do keep going to him. He keeps telling me I'm not as young as I was when I used to do this, which is true. But I still can't say to the residents, OK, I'm not going to stop saying anything. Something's got to be done. Are the bollards put there so that cars can't go down there too quick? The best idea I've come up with is turn it into a one-way system, because you can come in through Shackleton Place and go out around the corner.
That's a Milton Keynes Council. That's a Milton Keynes Council decision, though. That is, Catherine. You know that, and Sean is well aware. We tried to get Cornell Crescent turned into a one-way system, and Rob Charles was totally on side, but Milton Keynes Council poo-pooed it because 2 residents objected to it. Thanks. I'm sure they've got that highlighted now, but it's not just the shop. This is residents from those flats at the top, which is the biggest problem with parking on that corner. And I've got to give somebody else a chance now. John, have you got anything?
I have not actually. No, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Chair, I wonder if we could just wind back to the point that Carl made about e-scooters, because that hasn't been. Chair.
That's where I was just about to come from. Okay. You're all aware that I am vehemently against these private scooters. I am vehemently against the young people that are using their parents' accounts for the rental scooters. So much so I've highlighted this at Milton Keynes Council as I have a chance to do so. I had a chat with the new deputy LPA commander last Thursday, who it turns out I've met before. He's an ex-firearms officer, and he wants to come over and meet us at Campbell Park and have a chat. But he has a philosophy with these scooters, and that is, if any officer sees what they're doing at any time, they should be tackling them. It's not going to be easy, we know, because it's going to take a bit. It's going to pressurise other things. I am in the process of writing to the Police and Crime Commissioner, because the use of private scooters anywhere except for on private land is illegal. We all know that. Other parts of TVP TVP area are getting action. Here in Milton Keynes, we're not. And that is something that I am totally opposed to, the fact we're not getting the action. If the reason is because we haven't got enough officers, then again, in my letter to the PCC will be, I'm being told that we can't have action because we haven't got enough officers to deal with it. In reality, guys, what please can you do to get these scooters off of our pavements, pulling out of redways, hitting cars, and they're not insured, so the cars can't get any damage repaired. What can we do?
Can I say I want to add to the tale of woe, because I don't think it's just about how these things are driven, though they're driven like lunatics very, very commonly for obvious reasons. It's about their abandonment as well.
Yeah, Milton Keynes Council are dealing with that, John. They are changing. They're changing the contract, and they have to be dropped in. They're having the area, the squares painted on the pavements or roads where they can be left now, which is the same as it is in other cities. So that one is being dealt with. Although I'm sure it won't do it. But unfortunately, TVP can't do anything with those ones, unless, of course, they're under the age where they should be riding them, in which case they're not insured. It's the private ones we must get dealt with, and I think that's the scourge of our society at the moment.
The biggest problem we find with the scooters is actually stopping them. To be honest, you know, the second they see us, they're off. And
do you not have scooters of your own that you can go?
we actually tried when the rental ones first came out. We actually approached them to see if we could do it, but for different reasons, it was a non-starter really. They are committed offences. We know this. They are road-related offences. The problem is actually getting them to stop so we can speak to them and identify them, and then beyond that, it is again comes down to resources on the neighbourhood. The shift boys, they're not going to stop. They're just not. They're too busy, and the neighbourhood things. It's not high on the threat and risk that we're having to deal with other options at the moment. So you know, it is something we are aware of. We don't like them either, because they are a problem for everyone, including us. And I don't really know what the answer is to what you're asking us, to be honest. It's, you know, if we can get them stopped, we can prosecute them, but it's getting them in the first place and then being able to identify who they are.
Well, I
think what we're asking for, basically what we're asking for is if an officer, I mean, I stood with an officer the other day and one just come gently riding past, and I said to him, "Are you not going to stop it?" "No, I haven't got the powers to." I said, "Yes, you have. It's a motor vehicle. It's being ridden on the path. It has no insurance. The guy doesn't have a license because he's too young." And he didn't know. It's not. Some of it is also the knowledge with officers that are on the ground, unless, of course, he was trying to put the wool over my eyes. But you know, I don't know that. I understand you haven't got the issue. But where I am concerned is where I've seen them down where I live at the end of Mullion, where they're doing drug deals outside my house and then riding over the bridge into Eaglestone, because that's what they're using them for. They use them as drug mules.
Yeah, and so that's the issues we have. You know, they're very much used for criminality. They are easily outrun us easily. They are thin enough to go on the redways and down the alleyways, which, you know, so you can't even see them in the car because you wouldn't be allowed anyway. We would have that stopped straight away because of the safety aspect. It is a major problem, and we're kind of looking for answers as well as you are as to what we can do.
And the majority of them still are the rentals, because there's two different companies. So the majority of them are the rentals. 3
companies now.
Yeah, and one of them is it almost looks completely black, so it's very hard to tell. But again, it's not solving the problem, but these things, like you said, need reporting to Milton Keynes Council, who've issued the licenses for it, and also directly to the companies, because like you said, if children are obviously too young to be on it and are managing to beat the system, then all of that needs to be fed back as well.
Yeah. There has been one prosecution in Northampton of a youngster on a rental cycle, and his mother picked up a 3-point endorsement and £185 fine on her licence because it was her account. She was aiding and abetting. So we know the powers are there. I realise it's a resource problem. And again, I will be, as I said, I will be writing to the PCC and to the LPA commander with my concerns. And I know you guys, you would love to be able to do it. Unfortunately, again, we're down to the same thing, aren't we? Resources and, you know, and the fact you legally can't use a taser on them, which I think is a real pity.
We're not as quick as we used to be, Terry.
I mean, one evening I was in my car and I was parked next to a copper at the traffic lights up by the hub, and 2 people on a scooter rode past him.
Yeah.
You know,
You're not allowed to sue them though.
no, well, no, but I understand that, but he didn't even then go turn down the junction to see if he could find out where they were going, pull in front of them and have a conversation with them. He just continued towards the police station. You know,
I mean,
you see that and it's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. It's probably more frustrating for the officers that can't actually. They're not allowed to chase them. They're just not allowed to chase them. Things are changing in certain cities. In London, the Met are actually chasing them. But again, they've only got to go down an alleyway, so they're hoping hell. But yeah, okay.
Just quickly, in terms of them being abandoned, each company does have a phone number, and they are quite active in driving around, and they put them in the transit vans because they charge them in the transit vans.
Yeah.
So if we're getting messages out, if we can encourage people to ring the number, the company will come and collect them and will remove them if they're parked in an abandoned place.
We'll get the number, but we'll get the numbers for each of the companies. There's 3 companies. We'll get the number for them, and we will pass them out to councillors.
Those can go out in home ground, perhaps as well, couldn't they?
Yeah. Home ground won't be till January now, so the one's just going to February. I think the one's just gone out. On that subject of home ground, the last time we met, we were going to have an article for home ground from our neighbourhood officers, and it didn't happen. I wonder if you want to, if you think about it now, if we can have it early January. If you want something to go out, then please do. I was going to put one in about Operation Dark Night, but I haven't been informed that it's actually started again this year, or whether they're actually running Dark Night. Normally we'd be told if we were, and we haven't had any information this time.
I do believe Dark Night will be running, Terry. We personally haven't had any information recently, but we also have had, obviously, Op Scepter's just happening at the moment, and we've got Op Aiden and Op Skylark, so it might be that Dark Night is coming.
Okay, thank you.
And in relation to the newsletter, we will pass it on. I mean, Jim might put something in specifically for Fishermead, but we'll pass it on to Chris Smith, who is the NS for the whole of the Campbell Park area.
That would be great. Thank you very much. Dominic, is there anything you need to add? You get more information to you than anybody else within the parish.
I've just been sitting there thinking about that, Terry, as you've been talking, and I think you've covered a lot of the areas that are the ones that are currently kind of causing concern for residents. That is for sure. It was interesting just the conversation at the beginning about a lack of reporting. So that's something that we really do need to encourage residents to do. I think there's a perception that the 101 system from a resident viewpoint appears to be quite a long-winded one. So if the online reporting is just as effective, well then that's something that we really need to encourage our residents to do. So I think that's something that is for sure. And at the same time, you talked about the threat and the risks of all the resources and how you allocate those. I think it would be, informative for our residents to know typically what are the things that are the highest, so they get a sense of what it is that the neighbourhood team are typically tackling in any given day, week or shift pattern.
The main thing at the moment that with the most priority we're dealing with at the moment is the county drugs lines, due to obviously the harm they bring and the associated violence. We don't have an awful lot of violence on Campbell Park at the moment, but we have got county drugs lines on here dealing across all the estates. They are probably our #1 priority as a team at the moment, and it links directly into the antisocial behaviour side of things. So we know that there's groups in the communal stairwells of all estates, and it's not just Fishermead. Fishermead is primarily our busiest estate, and all the statistics will back that up. So a lot of our time goes into Fishermead, and purely because that's where most things are happening, or most things are getting reported, and this is where we come back to being reported. So, but we are aware of. I mean, drugs is a problem on every estate in Milton Keynes, and we try our hardest to get involved in it, try and re-educate people, obviously prosecute people if we can. Again, it links into everything, because like I say, we run an Op Scepter this week, which is about knife crime. That links into county drugs lines. most ASB will link into some kind of drug activity. Other than that, at the moment, across the estates of Campbell Park, we don't have a lot of other things going on. We have lots of little pockets of antisocial behaviour, but the county drugs lines is currently our priority.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Anything we can get with where they are, what they're doing, you know, what times of day, especially. So, because you know, I can move our team around, but I need to know when people are bothering people, basically.
And I think that's quite important, you see, because I think residents would agree with you that is correctly apportions of priority, and I think then they would ask, okay, it's interesting, what can we do to help? Yeah. So I think you need to be actually sharing with them, and Home Ground is a way of doing that. What you would like them to do if they see A, B, or C. What do you want them to do? And clearly, you want them to report it, not just go, oh, they're at it again. You actually need the information to come in, and you need us, or them, I should say, to be the eyes on the ground. They need guidance and education about how to be the eyes on the ground, because if you can get that, that's good.
Absolutely, and the more information, the better. You know, in terms of times of day, is it every day? Is it every Friday? You know, what time of day? If you can, descriptions of people, that helps us a lot, because as soon as we turn up, everybody moves away from us. So if we've got an idea of what we're looking for and who we're looking for, we can pick them up better. Unfortunately, we're not subtle in how we turn up. We're in diesel cars that are very bright, and they see us coming a lot before we see them, unfortunately. We do a lot of plainclothes work on the estates to try and combat that actual problem, which has been quite successful. But like I say, I mean, I'm more than happy to put something in the homebound letter. But it's about as much information. You know, for us to target any problem, we need as much information as we can get. And if we don't get that information, then we're just not going to come, because we're going to go where we are getting told stuff is going on.
Yeah, and as councillors, we want to, you know, share that news as much as we possibly can. Encourage our folk to share with you that information. Yeah.
And one thing that we do,
Harry, but we can also, if your residents want to be a part of it and want to be, you know, having a bit of community resilience, things like the neighbourhood watch systems and things like that, a lot of them have shut down, but it has been revamped, and they are trying to get things like that up and going again. So if residents, you know, want to be a part of it, want to be able to help, having a look, there's a whole section online about starting your own neighbourhood watch, the benefits of it and things like that. Just anything that gives us a bit more eyes and ears and then gets reported back.
If we need a neighbourhood watch team, do we get a taser gun that we can have?
Oh,
I'm not going to give you promises. Maybe a cup of tea and a pack of biscuits, but
We'll give you
yeah. I mean, this comes down to the demise of the old nags. I mean, neighbourhood action groups are absolutely fantastic. I mean, ours, Fishermead in Oldbrook, was absolutely superb. It just died a death. People were not wanting to get involved, and that is the biggest problem, I think. Now it's the blind eye syndrome. They don't care until it's actually on top of them. Right. The one thing that we can do, and I'm sure Sean and Jim will back me up on this, is the use of homes, county lines, just antisocial behaviour from homes. To give you an example, I have one in 3 doors down from me in Mullion Place, where it was a constant problem with one tenant in a HIMO, dealing drugs, having people there delivering drugs, and there was a closure order put on his room, antisocial behaviour closure order. He was then out of the room. He had to find somewhere else to live. The situation went away. And I am a massive fan of antisocial behaviour closure orders, because they work, because it disrupts the drug dealers, it disrupts the people, the mules, and it cleans the area up. But one thing we have got to do, where there's antisocial behaviour orders issued, is we've still got the same problem outside the co-op, with 2 of them there aggressively begging all the time. And also recently outside Tesco and Oldbrook. It's the same ones time and time and time again. They've got antisocial behaviour orders on. I wonder if there's any chance that that we can just have a look round at these areas again during patrols, because it is constant, and people get fed up of reporting it. because again, they just keep turning up as if they just stick 2 fingers up to the authority. And if that could be done, please, guys, I think that would alleviate some of the problems that we do have.
Yeah, we have a constant, we call it a problem solving occurrence with regards to begging at the moment. What with the new antisocial powers we have is we can issue, first and foremost, you issue a community protection warning. So it's a warning by the police that your behaviour's out of order, basically, and it's stop that behaviour. When they don't stop that behaviour, or if they don't stop that behaviour, we move that on to a community protection notice, which will have some conditions on it that are enforceable by arrest or a fixed penalty fine. And then if they still don't behave, we then move on to a criminal behaviour order, which is the new ASBO. And that's an order that lasts for 5 years. And again, has conditions on it, which we can remove people from certain areas. The other thing which Terry was talking about is a premise closure, which is a power we can use to do with landlords and homeowners. We can do it on private or council housing association tenants. But the idea of we start with the warning and we move on is we have to show to a court that there is a progression of behaviour. So at the start we will always go with the warning to say you need to stop, and then we escalate it through. So when we go for the CBO, the criminal behaviour order, we can satisfy a judge that we've tried everything we can to prevent this behaviour and it's not worked. So now we need this order in place. So it has to be done as a scale. So we can't just go straight in with an ASBO, so to speak.
Yeah. Could you, James, while you're on there, could you please let the councillors know about the community trigger? So
the community trigger in terms of when
the 3 strikes, yeah.
So it's in effect we try and work together basically to say, you know, if you're a consistent, but it's all about being a consistent problem. We have the powers to deal with people if they are persistent, and that's where our powers come in. The idea is to try and stop it before it gets anywhere near that level, basically.
Yeah, but the one thing we can do as councillors and as individuals is if we feel that something keeps on occurring, it's reported, keeps on occurring, we can ask for a community trigger, in which case, say for MK, then call in the local police, and the LPA commander has to agree to it. It has to agree to it. He can't say no, that an investigation will go forward on that trigger. And it has worked. I believe it worked recently over on Gifford Park, where the community trigger ended up causing a premises closure, which was necessary, and also one over on Thurston. So it does work, but again, it's something that we as councillors and us as a council must work very closely with the police, and that's why this forum's here. You know, this is one of the reasons why we hold this forum, is because we want to work closely with as many agencies as we can, and Thames Valley Police is right at the top of that list. So yeah,
Terry, I think the community trigger works in another way as well, in the relation that we've had quite a few recently that have been called, and when you actually call the meeting and you get everybody that's involved, you realise that actually there is a lot being done, and perhaps each individual group or partner doesn't realise what's being done. So sometimes it's just more making a resident or even a councillor realise that behind the scenes, all these different agencies are doing things. Sometimes, yeah, it shows that enough is being done, or other times it means that we can look where the gaps are and do a bit extra.
But of course, we all know about the lack of communication between agencies, which is our biggest problem. Agencies don't like talking to each other, and that's something we've got to get over. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that. Anybody else got anything for the officers?
Yeah, can I just mention something about this drug? Do you remember when I reported the house two doors down from me was dealing?
I dealt with that, didn't I, for you? Yeah, and it was really good because it was. One minute, Catherine. It was PCSOs that put it through for us in the end, because I actually contacted direct to Craig, and Craig got officers involved with that straight away. So it does work. Yeah, carry on.
Hold on. It was very good. They moved everybody on. This young lad was moved on. The landlord of the property came up. Now, when he took over that property, he gave us his phone number so that I could report to him if any more problems were going on there. Now, this particular young man that caused the problem, he must have had some keys cut because he's been back on several occasions. Now, my last job was to inform the landlord that he needs to change all his locks. The lad has not been back. The locks have not been changed yet, but he's not been back because a very nice young man living next door to there who looks after his grandfather got fed up with him and went out there and gave him a good kicking, I'm afraid.
You shouldn't be telling people that, Catherine.
I know I shouldn't, but it left. He's not been back.
Jim, Sean, you didn't hear that.
The keys have been left.
Yeah.
The boy left the keys behind. He didn't take the spare ones. He's not been back to that house. So I'm sorry, but that is what your residents are doing out there. If they see something, they're going to do it. They're getting fed up with it round here.
I could never condone that, Catherine. Never.
I don't condone it, but I'm afraid it's happened.
Yes,
I couldn't do anything.
Yeah. Okay. Tracy, have you got anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. And you can stay in contact with Jimmy and Sean for adding stuff into home ground. It's your committee. So yeah, okay. John, have you got anything else?
Terry, I have.
Tracy, sorry, just on
You
that.
have, Dominic.
We'll let Sean.
Just on just a bit of crime prevention. Obviously, you mentioned Dark Night earlier. Just to be aware, we've had a car crime series recently, not on this area, but we had somebody commit something like 67 offences, and most of them were cars that were unlocked. So just as it's getting darker, just again reminding people about cars, houses, etc., because there are people that just opportunity rather than the burglars that are going to break in. Just to remind people that we need to be vigilant.
And the cold mornings where they're leaving their car running with the keys in the ignition with a door key. Oh, wonderful idea. So yeah, okay, Dominic.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Sean, Jim, the events of the weekend in Liverpool are kind of a reminder of the constant situation that we find ourselves in at the moment and the subsequent increase in the threat level. What can residents do if they know of people, live next to people that are people of concern to them, that moment in time they don't think that it's crossing over into criminality, but just something is not sitting right and there is a concern about that? What can they do to try and sort of like get to an issue at an early point?
Genuinely, if people have any concerns, no matter how big, how small, you can report it to us. You can report it online. There are national organisations that you can go on. But as a point of call, I would say, let us know. Even if it's that we're never going to tell you, that's really silly. Don't let us know at any time, but especially how things are at the moment. If you just have that feeling, you speak to a PCSO that walks past you in the street, or you call the police, or you go to online, you just need to let somebody know. Okay.
Well, that's maybe something as well we can cover in home ground.
Yes, there is also a dedicated team within TVP that works with Bedfordshire as well, I believe. I remember that myself and Darren Kendrick went to an information session on it maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where we were given information then. So, yeah, I know there is a group. What I'll do is I'll try and find that out, unless Jim or Sean know about it. Maybe that's something that we can...
Terry, they are the prevent team.
That's it, prevent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we still have them. They're still running nationally. But again, if rather than having people to go to that, if they let us know, we can just refer people straight on. But it is the prevent team.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Carl, have you got anything else?
No.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. One thing we need to do again is some councillors here won't know about Dark Night. And that is to make sure there's a light on. People make it look as though you're in if you are going to be out. Everything's locked, including your shed, because the burglary crimes do go up at this time of year. It happens every time. Fortunately, on Fishermead, we don't suffer so much. Oldbrook does. Woolston does, John. There was a few issues 2 years ago on Woolston where sheds were broken into, and so quite high-end equipment was stolen out of sheds. And again on Springfield, Carl, it's the same there. So we just need to be vigilant and make sure residents are aware. Just make sure everything's locked, the windows are shut and locked. So yeah. Okay, have you got anything else you want to add, Jim or Sean? No? Okay. Can I personally thank you for your time? You are very busy, guys. Again, Campbell Park is very appreciative of this sort of event. It's unfortunate that we don't get many residents turn up as they do at Wolfton. As you know, Sean, I've been at a meeting where you was there at Wolfton when you had 25 residents in the audience asking questions. But again, you know, we're getting to the stage now where we're getting so much apathy from residents. And I think that the councillors that have been on here a lot longer than me realise that. Dominic's seen it, I'm sure, and which is the reason why the Resident Association shut down, which was another good way of feeding information into the police. But again, can I thank you for turning up? Members, can I thank you for taking time, and our officers? If there's nothing else, then please, if you feel you need to go, then you can leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.